For years, Rhodes had been pulling the strings, laying the groundwork for his return, playing a long, manipulative game that would end with Amy at the center of it all. As the days passed, the tension at Heartland became palpable. Every corner of the ranch felt different, fragile, on the edge of disaster. The air was thick with uncertainty. Every moment felt like it could tip the balance. Amy's thoughts were consumed by the realization that the battle for Heartland wasn't just about land, it was about everything she held dear. And Rhodes wasn't going to stop until it was all his. The pieces were finally falling into place, but the puzzle was far more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. With each revelation, the stakes grew higher, and Amy had no idea just how much danger she was really in. Amy was more cautious than ever, watching her back at every turn, aware that something was closing in on her, something she couldn't outrun. The horses seemed restless, even the ones that had always been calm and steady. Every time Amy entered the stables, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. It wasn't just paranoia, it was instinct. The danger was real. The most terrifying moment came when Amy was alone in the barn one night, trying to calm one of the more skittish horses, when a shadow crossed the doorway. Amy froze. A voice called out softly from the dark. "Amy?" She whipped around, heart pounding, to find a figure standing just inside the barn. The moonlight illuminated the face, and Amy's breath caught in her throat. It was Caleb. But something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. His usual calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. Before she could speak, Caleb rushed toward her, grabbing her arms in desperation. "You have to listen to me," he said, his voice trembling. "It's not over. Rhodes, he's not done with you. He's going to destroy everything. Starting with you." Amy was stunned. Caleb's urgency and fear were unlike anything she'd ever seen from him. The fact that he had come to her at this hour, knowing the risk of being caught, made it clear that something serious was going on. She tried to calm him down, to ask what he meant, but Caleb was practically incoherent. Caleb stammered, his voice faltering as he glanced nervously toward the barn doors, his face pale with fear. "I can't explain it all right now, Amy. But you need to get out of here. Rhodes is planning something. Something big. Something that will take everything from you. You need to leave. Now." His voice trembled, his eyes flickering with urgency, as if he could see the storm coming, but couldn't fully grasp its magnitude. "You're not safe here." Amy's heart slammed against her chest as Caleb's words hung in the air. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of events that had been unfolding. The cryptic phone calls, the unsettling messages, the strange behavior from people she thought she could trust, all of it suddenly fell into place. Rhodes wasn't just playing games anymore. He was orchestrating something far more dangerous, something that threatened to tear Heartland apart at the seams. And it had everything to do with her. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. This wasn't just a game. This wasn't a passing threat. Rhodes had a plan that could destroy everything she had worked for, everything her family had built. Her pulse quickened, but before she could respond, Caleb's face contorted in fear. He backed away slowly, his eyes darting around the darkness, scanning for something or someone Amy couldn't see. Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving her alone with the weight of his cryptic warning. And with no answers. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Amy stood frozen, the words echoing in her mind. "You're not safe here." The dread in Caleb's voice had been palpable, and the fear in his eyes was something she couldn't shake. Something was coming, and no matter how hard she tried to deny it, it felt like the calm before a devastating storm. The next morning, Amy woke with a gnawing sense of foreboding, as if the world around her had shifted and she couldn't find her footing. She couldn't escape it anymore. She couldn't run, and she certainly couldn't fight this alone. The walls that had once protected Heartland felt as though they were closing in on her. Rhodes was closing in. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about a much bigger, more dangerous game, one she wasn't ready for. And it was happening whether she was ready or not. The realization hit her hard. What if she couldn't stop this in time? What if, like the past, the storm that was building was too powerful to weather? What if everything she loved, everything she held dear, was going to be swept away, and there was nothing she could do to stop it? Amy stood at the window, looking out over the land that had always been home. But today, it felt different. The air was thick with anticipation. The once peaceful ranch now felt like a battlefield. She realized that the real battle was just beginning, and it was one she couldn't face alone. The mounting tension at Heartland became unbearable, and Amy knew that the time for hiding from the truth had long passed. She had always believed that Heartland was a sanctuary, a place where she could find peace amidst chaos. But now her sanctuary was on the verge of collapse, its foundations shaking with the weight of the past and with Rhodes threatening to unravel everything. Every new revelation seemed to add to the pressure, each one more terrifying than the last. No one was safe. Her family, her friends, even herself. No one could escape the turmoil that was closing in on them. Trust, something Amy had always taken for granted, was beginning to erode. The lies, the secrets, the hidden threats, it was all coming to light, and it was starting to break her. But in the midst of the chaos, she knew she had to act. She had to confront the one person who could still help her make sense of it all. The one person who had always stood by her side, who understood the weight of everything she was carrying. Her sister, Lou. That evening, after another harrowing day spent chasing the ghosts of Oliver Rhodes' past and trying to piece together his sinister plans, Amy sat Lou down in the living room. The fire crackled in the hearth, the warmth from the flames doing little to ease the cold weight that hung in the air. Amy's voice trembled as she spoke, the words coming out in a rush, like the floodgates had been opened. She had to tell Lou everything. But what if it was already too late? "I'm scared, Lou," Amy admitted, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound composed. "I don't know who I can trust anymore. I don't know what's real." Lou gave her a sympathetic look, her brow furrowing as she took Amy's hands in her own. "You don't have to go through this alone," Lou said gently. "We'll figure this out together. You know I've got your back no matter what." But Amy wasn't so sure anymore. The more she uncovered about RHSE's connection to Heartland, the more she realized that the fight ahead wasn't just about protecting the ranch, it was about saving her own life. RHS had made it clear that Amy was at the center of this vendetta, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the storm that had been building was about to hit its peak. Despite Lou's reassurances, Amy's mind was plagued by doubt. What if the people she trusted most were part of the reason this danger was so close? What if her own family was unknowingly wrapped up in the dark history that had led to RHS's return? "I found something," Amy said quietly, pulling a weathered folder from beneath the table. It was filled with old letters, legal documents, and photographs evidence she had gathered over the last few days. She spread the documents across the table, and Lou's eyes scanned them with increasing alarm. "It's all here," Amy continued. "Every legal battle, every dirty deal. RHS wasn't just after the land, he was after control. He wanted everything, and he wasn't afraid to do whatever it took to get it." Lou's face turned pale as she flipped through the papers. "Amy, these aren't just old business disputes. These are threats. These people weren't just involved in property battles, they were trying to bury each other. This could ruin everything." Amy nodded, her heart heavy with the truth. The darkness that had been lurking in Heartland's past had not only resurfaced, it had taken root. And Amy now had to confront it head on. "I can't protect Heartland alone, Lo. I can't even protect myself. If we don't do something, if we don't take action now, everything we've worked for could be lost." Lou met Amy's gaze, a mixture of concern and resolve in her eyes. "Then we do this together. We'll fight. We'll take back control." Amy wanted to believe her. But deep down, she knew that things were no longer simple. RHS wasn't just fighting for land, he was fighting for something much more dangerous: the power to break them. As the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, the stakes were growing higher. And the danger wasn't just lurking in the shadows anymore, it was at their doorstep. The next morning, Amy and Lou decided to take matters into their own hands. They contacted every ally they could think of: Caleb, Jack, even some of the older ranch hands who had worked with the Fleming family for decades. They knew the fight ahead would be difficult, but they were determined to face it head-on. However, what they didn't expect was the chilling message that arrived shortly after making their decision. A package, unmarked and with no return address, was left at the doorstep of Heartland Ranch. It contained only one item: a photograph of Amy standing alone in front of the barn, a look of determination etched on her face. What made the photo so unsettling was the addition of a message written on the back in bold black letters: "This is only the beginning." Amy's stomach dropped as she stared at the photo. Whoever had sent it clearly knew she was taking action, and they weren't backing down. In fact, it seemed like they were daring her to make a move. "We can't wait any longer," Amy said, her voice tight with a mixture of fear and resolve. "It's time to confront this head-on. No more running. No more hiding." Lou nodded, but her eyes were filled with worry. What if this isn't just about roads? What if there's something bigger at play? Amy didn't know what to think anymore. The truth had become so tangled in lies, so twisted by hidden agendas, that it was nearly impossible to separate the past from the present. But one thing was clear: someone was willing to do anything to tear Heartland apart. And Amy was standing in the middle of it all. Share your thoughts in comment section and subscribe my channel for more Heartland updates. For years, we followed her journey through love, loss, and resilience. We've cheered for her, cried with her, and believed she was unbreakable. But now, everything is about to change. Is this really the end of Amy's story? What happens when the one character we've trusted to lead us through the ups and downs of Heartland is suddenly gone? The future of the ranch, the family, and the very essence of the show hangs by a thread. Season 19 doesn't just test Amy, it shakes the foundation of everything we thought we knew about Heartland. Get ready, because this finale isn't just emotional. It's earth-shattering. Brace yourself for a season finale that will shake the very core of Heartland, because no one saw this coming. What began as a season filled with hope and healing is now spiraling toward a conclusion that will leave fans stunned, emotional, and questioning everything they thought they knew. At the start, everything felt right. Amy Fleming was rising to new heights in her career, successfully working with horses others had given up on. Her connection with them had never been stronger, and for the first time in a long while, it seemed like she was finally reclaiming her light after losing Ty. The ranch was thriving. The family was finding peace. Victories, big and small, were giving everyone a reason to smile again. But peace doesn't last forever, not in Heartland. As the episodes rolled on, something began to shift. Subtle at first, barely noticeable. Unexplainable happenings around the ranch. Shadows where there shouldn't be. Doors left open. Horses growing restless without cause. What felt like coincidence slowly started to feel like a warning. A slow burning tension crept in, and the comforting calm of Heartland began to feel uneasy, like something was building. Something no one was ready for. And then came the twist. One that no one, not Amy, not her family, not the fans, could have prepared for. As the season builds toward its jaw-dropping climax, it becomes clear this is more than just another challenge. This could be the moment everything changes. Forever. Despite everything unraveling around her, Amy stayed laser-focused, pouring every ounce of strength she had into keeping Heartland afloat. The ranch was more than just land and horses. It was her sanctuary, her last tie to tie, and the legacy she had sworn to protect. She worked tirelessly from sunrise to sunset, driven by purpose, but burdened by the growing weight of responsibility. She was the glue holding it all together, but even the strongest hearts can crack under too much pressure. And it wasn't just the animals or the land showing signs of unrest. Something was shifting in the people closest to her. Lou, once so present and decisive, had grown distracted, preoccupied with something she wouldn't talk about. Peter was distant, avoiding eye contact and conversations that mattered. Even Jack, the rock of the family, had fallen into a heavy silence. His usual wisdom replaced by long stares and furrowed brows, as if he too felt a storm was coming, but couldn't find the words to say it. Still, Amy pressed on. She had to. There was no room for weakness, not when everyone was looking to her for strength. But beneath her brave exterior, unease began to grow. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was something darker, something she couldn't name. A sense that everything she loved was teetering on the edge of something irreversible. Then it happened. The call. In the dead of night, her phone rang, jolting her awake. A voice she didn't recognize. Panicked, urgent, shaky. The message was chilling in its simplicity. You need to come to the ranch now. Something's wrong. It's about Ty. Her blood ran cold. Without hesitation, Amy threw on her coat, jumped in the truck, and drove like the wind, heart pounding with every turn of the road. Her thoughts spiraled. Was someone on the property? Was the family in danger? Could it really be about Ty after all this time? By the time she pulled up to Heartland, dawn was still hours away, and the ranch was blanketed in an eerie, unnatural silence. The horses stirred nervously in their stalls, their unease echoing her own. The barn door creaked in the breeze, slightly ajar, too quiet, too still. She stepped inside, her breath fogging in the cold air. And there it was. A single note, taped to the wall. No name, no signature. Just a few chilling words scrawled in shaky handwriting. The past is not buried. It's just been waiting. The past can't stay buried. Her heart sank. This message was more than just a warning. It was a harbinger of what was to come. Something was about to unfold that no one, not even Amy, could have prepared for. As Amy stood there, staring at the cryptic message pinned to the barn wall, a chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold night air. That single note, "The past is not buried. It's just been waiting," was more than just a haunting phrase. It was a warning, a threat, a ghost from a time she thought she had long put behind her. And as the words burned themselves into her memory, one terrifying thought consumed her. Was this the beginning of something far more dangerous than she ever imagined? What if the strange energy that had settled over Heartland wasn't just bad luck or emotional strain, but a sign, a signal that something sinister had already taken root? The odd behavior from her family, the restless animals, the subtle but growing tension, it all began to feel like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't yet realized she was meant to solve. And now that puzzle was revealing itself. Slowly, painfully. Could the land that once brought healing now be drawing her toward unimaginable loss? Could this message mean the legacy she'd fought so hard to preserve was under threat from something or someone that had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Questions flooded Amy's mind, but clarity remained just out of reach. All she knew was this: she couldn't face this storm alone. With everything at stake, she would have to lean on those closest to her: Lou, Jack, Georgie, even Peter if she had any hope of uncovering the truth before it was too late. The mystery was only just beginning to unfold. Clues hidden in memories, whispers from the past, and shadows that refused to stay buried. But as she got closer to the truth, so did the danger. Some pieces of the puzzle could lead to healing, but others, if uncovered, could lead straight to heartbreak. The calm before the storm had vanished. The show fans have loved for nearly 2 decades was barreling toward a turning point no one could have predicted. And at the center of it all stood Amy Fleming, unknowingly stepping into a dangerous game, a game that could cost her everything. Was her fate sealed the moment she walked into that barn? Or was this just the beginning of a darker chapter 1 that could end in the loss of the one person no one ever imagined Heartland without? Time is running out. The truth is coming. And the storm? It's not just on the horizon anymore, it's here. Would she survive? As the days dragged on after the chilling discovery in the barn, the atmosphere at Heartland began to shift in unsettling ways. The once warm, comforting air of the ranch now felt colder, heavier like a storm cloud that refused to move on. Amy was no longer sleeping. Her nights were haunted by dreams she couldn't remember but woke from in a cold sweat. The cryptic message echoed in her mind like a siren she couldn't silence. The past is not buried. It's just been waiting. Who would send her such a message, and why now? After all this time, what did they know? What were they trying to say? The questions circled endlessly in her mind, and no matter how hard she tried to keep life moving forward, training horses, supporting her family, clinging to routine, the weight of dread was growing too heavy to carry alone. Then came the second blow. One quiet morning, just as the fog lifted over the hills of Heartland, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She stared at it, her thumb hovering over the answer button, her instincts screaming at her. Finally, she picked up and immediately regretted it. The voice on the other end was unrecognizable, mechanical, cold, warped by a voice changer. "Fleming," it said. "You think you've left the past behind? But it's catching up to you. The things you've buried, they're not staying buried. And this time, there's no escaping it." Then silence. The call ended before she could even breathe a word. Amy stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, the threat hanging in the air like smoke. It wasn't just creepy. It was personal, intimate. Whoever this was, they knew her. They knew her past. And they were watching. But who? And what exactly were they threatening? Amy's mind raced. Could it be someone from Ty's life? Someone connected to an old client? A long-forgotten enemy from a time she'd buried deep? Or was this something even darker, something that went deeper than she dared to imagine? The rest of the day passed in a fog. Every creak of the wood floor, every rustle in the stables, every whisper of wind through the trees felt amplified. She felt watched constantly. The safe haven she had called home for so many years was beginning to feel like a trap. She no longer trusted the silence, the stillness, the shadows. The horses sensed it too. Once calm and easygoing, they had grown anxious and jumpy. Amy's connection to them, usually her compass, felt frayed. It was as though whatever darkness had entered her world was touching everything around her. And she wasn't the only one who noticed. Lou watched her sister with increasing worry. Amy was retreating, shutting people out, throwing herself into work as if she could outrun whatever was haunting her. Lou tried to break through, offering comfort, asking questions, but Amy wouldn't let her in. Not yet. Not until she had answers. Even Jack, the ever-steady anchor of Heartland, could see the change. He'd watched Amy grow from a determined young girl into a resilient woman, but this time was different. This wasn't just grief or pressure, this was fear. Real fear. And it was changing her. Then one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in streaks of violet and gold, Amy stepped away from the house, driven by an invisible pull. She needed clarity. She needed to breathe. She walked down to the river, the sacred place where Ty once held her, where decisions were made and healing often began. But tonight peace did not come. As she stood at the riverbank, watching the water rush past, a movement caught her eye. Across the river, just beyond the tree line, a figure stood motionless, shrouded in shadow. Amy's heart slammed against her ribs. She blinked, hoping it was a trick of the light, a trick of her exhausted mind. But the figure didn't move, didn't speak, didn't turn away. It simply stood there watching. Amy's breath caught in her throat. Whoever it was, they were real. They were close. And they wanted her to know it. The figure stepped forward slowly, revealing itself, and she gasped when she recognized who it was. It was someone she thought she had lost forever. Someone she had never expected to see again. The figure was none other than Caleb Ty's old friend and someone who had been out of the picture for a while. Amy had always trusted Caleb, but seeing him now, standing in the dark, felt wrong. He didn't say a word at first, just watched her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and heavy with unspoken emotion. "I never thought I'd see you here again," Amy said, trying to steady her voice. "What's going on, Caleb? Why are you here?" Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. "Amy, there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it's time. They're coming for you and they're coming for the ranch." Amy's breath caught in her throat. "Who? Who's coming for us?" Before Caleb could respond, the sound of tires screeching on the dirt road interrupted their conversation. Amy turned quickly, startled by the sudden noise. When she looked back, Caleb was gone. Vanished into the night, as if he had never been there. Amy stood frozen, her mind racing, trying to piece together what had just happened. Had Caleb been trying to warn her? And if so, what exactly was he trying to protect her from? The message was clear, though there was a threat, and it was coming for her and for Heartland. The storm was no longer just a feeling in the air. It was real, and it was getting closer by the minute. The next morning, Amy sat down with Lo and Jack to try and make sense of everything. She told them about Caleb's warning and the unsettling phone call. Lou was immediately on edge, urging Amy to take the threat seriously. Jack, too, seemed unusually tense, as if the mention of danger had triggered something deep within him. "I don't like this," Jack said, his voice grave. "We've been through a lot together, but this feels different. We need to find out who's behind this, and fast." Amy knew Jack was right. There was no more time to waste. She couldn't ignore the warning any longer. Something big was coming, and it was threatening everything she held dear. As the family gathered together, they realized that the fate of Heartland was hanging in the balance, and they had no idea how far this danger would reach. One thing was certain, though: if they didn't act fast, they might not have time to stop what was about to unfold. But even as they prepared to face whatever was out there, Amy couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The storm was building, and no one could predict what would happen when it finally broke. Would Amy survive? Would Heartland survive? And who, if anyone, would be left standing when the dust settled? As Amy delved deeper into the dark mystery surrounding her mother's past, the air at Heartland became thick with unease. What had started as vague, unsettling encounters, cryptic warnings, strange occurrences, and a constant feeling of being watched was rapidly escalating. The walls of Heartland, once a place of comfort and safety, now felt suffocating. Every step she took seemed to draw her deeper into a web of deceit, and the shadows of the past were closing in fast. It wasn't just the threat of someone from her mother's forgotten history. It was something far darker, far more dangerous, and disturbingly personal. Amy couldn't ignore it any longer. The cryptic messages and eerie encounters were no longer isolated incidents. They were signs of a storm that was building in intensity. And the more she uncovered, the clearer it became that her mother's involvement with Oliver Rhodes wasn't just a fleeting chapter in their family's history. It was the dark thread that had held everything together. Marion's choices, made years ago, had unknowingly set in motion a series of events that allowed Rhodes to slip through the cracks of the law, unseen and unfazed. The past that Amy had tried to bury, the past that seemed to haunt every corner of Heartland, was alive again, and it was coming for her. Rhodes wasn't just resurfacing, he was coming back with a vengeance, and this time he wasn't interested in old grudges or petty score settling. No, this time he was intent on finishing what had been started long ago. His return wasn't an accident, it was calculated. And Amy's newfound understanding of the past sent a chilling wave through her because she realized one terrifying truth. If Rhodes had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, then that moment had arrived. But what was his true endgame? Was it Heartland he sought to claim? Or was the focus solely on Amy? Was she now the target of a twisted plan that had been years in the making? As Amy unraveled more, she stumbled upon something far more disturbing. A hidden connection between Rhodes and a series of land disputes from years ago. The records, buried in the depths of Heartland's old files, told a different story, one of under-the-table deals, illegal bribes, and veiled threats. The disputes surrounding Heartland weren't just about land, they were about power. And at the heart of it all was Rhodes, his shadowy dealings casting a long and ominous influence over everything Amy had come to know. Heartland wasn't just a ranch. It was a key piece in a much larger, much darker puzzle. The stakes were far higher than she had ever imagined, and now, no matter how hard she tried, Amy couldn't pretend she was just an innocent bystander anymore. Heartland had always been at the center of this struggle, and Rhodes would stop at nothing to take it back. But the worst was yet to come. The day Albert Rhodes appeared at the gates of Heartland was a turning point. The reclusive, estranged brother of Oliver Rhodes had never been a part of the ranching business, never shown any interest in Heartland's affairs. But now, in the dead of afternoon, he stood at the gates, his figure as unsettling as the message he carried. Albert's quiet, eerie presence sent a shiver down Amy's spine, but it was his words, his cryptic, urgent warnings that rattled her to the core. He knew far too much. "You don't understand, Amy," Albert said, his voice low but thick with urgency, his eyes filled with something darker than just concern. "Your mother thought she could escape from it all. But the past always catches up. Rhodes isn't just after the land or the money. He's coming for everything your mother built, and it's not just the land he wants. It's the legacy. It's you." Amy froze. Her breath hitched in her throat. The weight of Albert's words crashed over her like a tidal wave. She had spent so long trying to protect her family, her home, trying to push away the ghosts of the past. But now it felt as though the very foundation of her world was crumbling beneath her feet. She had been too blind, too trusting,